Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about forms of government, um, theories behind what forms of government make for the best forms of government, how active government should be, on what basis would a decision about how active a government should be made. And to talk about those things, we're going to talk about three amigos. I don't think Rawls really knew the other two, though I suspect and don't know, I should know, but I'm not sure I know for sure how much John Locke knew Hobbes, or vice versa. But that's not important to our story today. So each of these individuals has a very different view about how government should perform, what its purpose is, and in fact, what human beings are. And they each have at least a passing relationship with some of the ethical frameworks that we talked about. And we're just going to talk through these real quick, nothing like the Ethical Dilemmas website. So just to give you a quick overview. Hobbes believed that humans are fundamentally self-interested and competitive, and that justice is order. So your biggest challenge in Hobbes's mind is keeping humans from hurting each other with their competitive self-interest. And to do that, you need a strong, centralized, sometimes single government form that can ride roughshod over human beings in such a way as to discourage them from getting carried away with their competitiveness and self-interest. So for Hobbes, living at the time he did, this was a direct read of reality based on the idea of monarchy. The king or queen held the position of absolute authority over a society, and many times was seen as, if not a god outright, as God's the most direct representation of God available to human beings. So you see in this period of Western history some pretty awful forms of justice. People not just being, they're not just being executed by the state, but being tortured, and their deaths made as gruesome as possible. And those deaths taking place in the light of day, in the middle of town. Sometimes the person might be driven around on a cart and tortured as part of their sentence before they were drawn and quartered and burned at the stake. And these things are intentionally gruesome based on the idea of discouraging this type of behavior. And what type of behavior got what type of justice was really up to the monarch. So there was one person with absolute authority over your life, and whatever you did not want to do anything that angered them. So a just society required, in Hobbes's mind, a strong central authority to keep individuals in line. And for that to happen, the individual has to surrender their rights, certain rights, like rights over their body, to the king or to the monarch, in return for the monarch providing what version of a safe society was in play for that society at that time. So you might not be surprised to find that for Hobbes, monarchies, dictatorships, totalitarian states, fascist states, those types of things made some sense for him. I mean, remember, the problem is the self-interested, competitive, think chimpanzee-like. I mean, chimpanzees are particularly violent animals. They're like us. They will kill their own kind. They will even torture their own kind when they kill their own kind. So in Hobbes's mind, we're not that far removed, and actually DNA-wise we're not either, that far removed from the chimpanzee. But for Hobbes, it wasn't the DNA, it was in our behavior. And therefore, you have to have this sort of dictatorial, totalitarian, monarchical arrangement where in order for me to live in that society, I give away my rights, the rights of my body, to the monarch. And the monarch then can bring order. And order is justice. Whatever brings order is just. So if drawing and quarter somebody for stealing whatever is, or for killing somebody or whatever the penalty is, keeps order, it is therefore a just act. So here you have the act being the determination of what is ethical, and the outcome of the act being a determination of what is ethical. It sounds like basically utilitarian type approach, right? We're going to draw and quarter this guy in order to keep other people from doing what he did, because if people start doing this, we're going to have a mess on our hands, right? We won't have a safe society. People won't want to stay in our country. They won't be faithful to the king. We'll have all sorts of chaos. All right. John Locke came along and basically said, no, I don't think Hobbes has it right. I think people are generally reasonable and are capable of self-government. They just need an environment where their life, liberty, and property are protected. So this may sound vaguely familiar, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's interesting that our founding documents do not have specifically property mentioned in that phraseology, but life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are right up Locke's alley. John Locke would have, I think, liked our founding documents for the most part. So justice is the protection of life, liberty, and property. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't still government. Government has a role of providing a standing army, for instance, and making sure that we're not invaded, and which would really screw up our life, liberty, and property, right? So, a just society protects these natural rights. These are considered what rights we're born into the world with. And by the way, just to be clear, what in terms of John Locke, what Western Europeans, white Western Europeans, were born into the world with. We're getting in. We're well past the colonialization of much of the world and the racism that accompanied that. But for Western Europeans, life, liberty, and property, those are the natural rights of the citizen that must be protected. And the contract requires a centralized government authority that serves at the will of the people. So there's not absolute authority in the government. The authority is gained from the people. This sounds also like a republic, like a democracy, to some degree like democratic socialism as well, I would say. So for Locke, government is the governments that he tends he would tend to like are democracies, republics, federal governments, federal arrangements. As long as these arrangements, the people that are serving as the leaders of the government serve at the will of the people. The monarch does not serve at the pleasure of the people. The people exist at the pleasure of the monarch. Locke flips that on its head because he doesn't believe people are chimpanzees. He believes that if you respect people, you'll get respect back. And that all fear does is drive people to be more disorderly, to create more injustice and more behavior that's undesirable. All right, so there are these two guys. And then along comes, much later, a couple of 100 years later, a guy named John Rawls. And John Rawls believes, the most important thing to remember about Rawls is, whereas in Hobbes and Locke, fairness and justice would have been considered distinct in many ways. What is fair is not always just, and what is just is not always fair. Because justice is a larger concept in those frameworks. For Rawls, justice is fairness and fairness is justice. If there is not fairness, there is not justice for Rawls. So Rawls really sees government taking a more activist role in society, and justice is fairness, equality regarding basic rights and equal opportunity. So here, an active government would treat everybody the same as a default, and most importantly, would act to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity, right? So the idea is to open up opportunities that level the playing field so that everyone has an opportunity to pursue their life, liberty, and happiness. Right, so Rawls is going to be thinking of an agreement that is based on how people are treated, right, and they assent to being governed because the government is providing for them equal opportunity. When the government doesn't provide equal opportunity, then that government no longer has the right to rule. Now, this may sound, like communism to some of you. It certainly is socialism, and socialism and communism are not the same thing. I don't know what happened to the rest of this bullet point here, but I will add it. So when you go back in, if you look at this, if you connect to the Padlet and look at this page, after the video, you'll see this will be all filled out. Plus, I'll have John's name in here. I noticed that while we were doing this, that I didn't have that button down. So a just society requires ensuring equal basic rights for all, and social and economic inequalities arranged to the benefit of the least advantaged. So what that means is, if there's going to be any inequalities in society towards economics or power, those inequalities are going to be arranged to benefit the least advantaged. So this form of government is not just actively removing barriers. It is helping people who have been harmed by inequalities. So it's taking an activist role in lifting those people up, right? So this person here is in Rawls's mind, this is not fair, right? If there's this type of arrangement, this is not fair or just. Bringing this person up to level with this person is just. That is an act of justice. This person may not see it that way, but in Locke's world, or I'm sorry, in Rawls's world, until these are equal, then there is no justice anyway. So even though you're going to help this person up because this person's already up here, Rawls does not see that as being unfair. He sees that as being the very epitome of fairness. We have turned that into using meritocracy as a whipping boy for it. We've turned that into an act where we believe this person up here is somehow being mistreated by raising this person up, like DEI, right? This diversity, equality, and inclusiveness idea, is being dismantled or has been dismantled based on the idea that by helping people who are not being treated fairly or being offered equal opportunity, we're somehow harming these other people. And that just simply, it's illogical in Rawls's world anyway. So for Rawls, the types of government would be socialism, democratic socialism, and Marxist communism. Now, Marxist communism is not Russian communism. It's not even Chinese communism. Marxist communism, to my knowledge, has never been practiced on a wide scale, but it exists in theory. And in theory, I think John Rawls would probably feel supportive for it as a type of government. Democratic socialism is pretty much the form of government that reigns throughout much of Western Europe today and in many other countries around the world. It's a mix of democracy and socialism where the government is much more active. It is not communism. Our politicians love to confuse us on these points, and anything that is considered an act that would fall under democratic socialism, like universal health care, for instance, is often called communism, and that's just simply inaccurate. But politicians in political philosophy are seldom have very much in common, I'm afraid. So anyway, that gives you an idea of the three amigos. And the fourth amigo is really Michael Sandel, which is one of the philosophers you're going to study. He's in this module. He is a professor at Harvard. He's a professor of political philosophy. He's written a number of books, most recently on the tyranny of meritocracy, and I'll let you watch the video and do your assignment on that. But basically, his argument is more along the line of Rawls in arguing that we claim to have a meritocracy in our country, but we really are pretty far away from anything of that kind. And in Sandel's mind, it would be pretty difficult to establish a true meritocracy in any kind of human endeavor because luck plays too great a role in things. In fact, it would be impossible without an activist government to correct for luck. And most of the people in a capitalist society that have money and power wouldn't like that, because correcting for luck would mean that they would be losing some of their money, and other people would be gaining from that loss, because a number of people, to make ludicrous amounts of money, I'm talking about billions of dollars, is got a lot more to do with luck and maybe some unethical behavior than it does to do with skill. You can make a decent living if you're skillful and you work hard, but even then, in today in particular, that you're going to have to catch a break somewhere. We all benefit from things that are done for us that go far beyond our own capabilities, and some of us are particularly benefited that way. Anyway, there you have it, the three amigos. Sandel is the fourth amigo. You'll be working on him during the class this module's work assignments. As always, reach out and let me know if anything there's confusing, or if you need more information about anything. Email's the way to do it, and I'll yak at you later.